what I want to do here is talk about the different parts of a railing. So we talked about stairs and the different sort of components of your stairs, your supports, your runs, landings. Railings, if you go to page 7, there are 4 general areas to designing a railing. And we're going to go over those. So I'm going to start the railing command here. And I'm just going to sketch a new railing from scratch. Here I'm in 3D, and I can just draw it beside our stair that's here. And I am going to use handrail pipe. I'm just going to draw a little short chunk of it here. All right. So there's handrail pipe, and so now we're going to look at the type properties of railings. So if we look at the notes here, we've got rails at the top here, which Revit calls non-continuous. Rails are the horizontal elements of a railing's design. So down here in this example railing I've got, you can see they're all blue here. The railings are all the horizontals below this one at the top. So here for handrail pipe, our rails or the horizontal parts of the design. The balusters are the vertical part of the design, and they repeat at intervals which you can define. Now below this, now we have top rails and handrails. So top rails, as you see in the notes there, they're a non-graspable part that defines the top of your railing's design. And handrails are the graspable parts of a railing, and you can see this particular railing style doesn't actually have any handrails defined. Now, you can see here we've got top rail and handrail. If we were to go and look in the browser, under the railings folder, we would find top rail and handrail in here. So again, going back to our railings type properties, it does have a top rail. Now, what we'll do first here is we will talk in order, sort of in the way that railings are generally designed, and that is starting with the horizontal elements of the railings design, the rails. So what rails are is they are sweeps that go along the length of the railing. So if you folks flip over to page 8, we're talking about the rails first. And down at the bottom of page 8 here, the rails, which Revit calls non-continuous. Now the reason that Revit calls these non-continuous is that when this railing hits a tight corner, say at a landing, Revit will not make a point of trying to make these horizontal parts of the railings design, the non-continuous rails. It's not going to worry about lining them all up vertically when the railing turns a corner. So here's what I mean. If I use that railing style here, so if I switch out the railing style that's on the stair to handrail pipe, the transitions when these railings turn to corners won't necessarily always line up. Now they do here because we've got quite a long transition between the two flights. So Revit's got a chance to try and make everything line up. But when the two flights are really close together, you will find that those sort of standard rails, if you will, the non-continuous rails, they may sort of meet, and then the next set will jump up a few inches and carry on up the other flight of stairs. So Revit is not trying to make it a high priority to take these so-called non-continuous rails and make them continuous in tight design situations on a stair. Now, despite that, the non-continuous rails are important because they often are used to define the heights of different parts of your railing. So you'll have a a pipe at the bottom that might be used as a kick on a stair, or it might be used as a support for a glass panel to give continuous support to the bottom of the glass panel, and one of your rails may fill in that role. And then here they're being used as horizontal guards for this railing, which of course is allowed in the States, but it's not allowed in Canada because our National Building Code believes that Canadian toddlers are stupid, right? Because Canadian toddlers will see this and go, I'm going to die, and jump themselves over to their death. And American toddlers, they don't do that. So we can't have those things here. Now, when we're starting with a railing that we want to use in Revit, you really have to have a sketch in mind so you can start putting these different pieces together. So most railings that you will design will have these rails within them, non-continuous rails, and you define them, you give them a height, and then you choose the profile family that you want to use. So here, profiles, these are all found in the profiles folder. So here's your profiles. And whatever you see here, some of these profiles are not available for railings, but any of the ones that are designed for railings, we can use those in our railings designs. So for instance, when I go back into the rail structure dialog box here, I'll take this bottom rail here at the bottom, so you can see here it is, rail 5, it's at 6 inches above the stair. And instead of using circular handrail 1 inch, I'm going to go use that elliptical one. There we go. So now it means that my bottom rail, which is this one here, will have an elliptical shape instead of a round shape. So there's the impact of having done that. So now I've got an ellipse that's forming the bottom of my handrail. And you folks can see the non-continuous part here, it's kind of a mess in the way this is being wrapped around the corners. So that's, again, that non-continuous component of your railings. So I'm just going to undo that step. Now, the next part of the railing that we're going to talk about here are balusters. So actually what we're going to do here is we'll jump all ahead here to, let's see which page in the notes. Go to page 13. So this is the baluster dialog box here, 13 and 14, so you can see them in notes, but maybe just cast your eyes back up on the screen here. Once you have the horizontals defined in your non-continuous rails dialog box, when you go to put in the vertical pickets, here the base and top, these two values here, so here I'm using this round 1 inch picket, and it's being placed every 4 feet, and it's going from the host up to this top rail. Now, in fact, what's happening here is that this picket is not using any of the rails at all to define the heights of anything. So that is a possibility. When you put your pickets in for your railings, so the pickets are the verticals that you see here, those things often use the heights of the non-continuous rails to define how high up they go. Now, if we go back to page, there's a good example here on page 8. Look at the bottom of page 8, and I will open up this railing. I think we've got a copy of it in our session 8 folder for tonight. I'm just going to open up that file here. I think I've got it. Now you can see that when you are inside the stair dialog box that there is a preview that allows you to see how your railing style is going to look once you place it out in your project. So this is a really handy feature. So instead of even having to place a little example of the railing, you can see a little preview of it before you use it. No, this isn't the one I want to use. It's in our, no, I think you'd actually have to go to a different folder for this. This is in, it's in the session at 2800. I just got to find out which one it's in. Stairs, there it is. So, if you guys go to the BLDG, the share out drive, BLDG 2800 session 7, it's the one that's called SO7 Railings. I'm going to download that here and we'll open that up. Now those who went to the initial intro course, you'll remember that this is one that I've used in that course just to demonstrate how you design a railing. And this is a good example, this railing style here, the Deco Type 60, which you also see in the bottom of page 8, because this railing style, when you go into the rails here, all of these different horizontals, so rail 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, there's no 6, but whatever. See all these different rails here? When we go into the next dialog box here, the Baluster Placement, this one is more complicated. And this is where this whole pattern comes into play. So the balusters are then used to drive, or they're being controlled by your basin top by the different rails that have been defined in the non-continuous rails dialog box. So that's kind of the point that we're trying to make here, is that even before you get to putting in your vertical pickets, you want to have your horizontals, your rails, sorted before you get to placing your balusters. So I think what we're going to do here, I'm going to come back to top rails and handrails in a few minutes. Let's go over and talk about balusters here, and then we'll come back and have some more discussion about rails. Now, if you guys go to page 11 of the notes, when you want to make your own balusters, so that is when you want to make your own pickets for your railings design, they come in 3 flavors. Now, the simple little pickets that you see here, Revit calls these balusters. Now, you can see that there are other balusters that are quite heavy, like a newel post at the end of this railing here, this Deco Type 60. And here, railing with panels. This baluster that you see here with the round knob on the top of it, that's also called a baluster, but Revit calls that a baluster post. The third kind of baluster that Revit makes is a panel. And so here we've got a baluster panel which has glass and the support brackets on the side of the glass. So that's a baluster panel. The post here, that's a baluster post. And then your simple pickets, Revit just simply calls them balusters. So folks, if you can go to the File menu right now, hover over New, and choose Family. In the File Open, or in the New Template dialog box, you can see them here. Your regular baluster, a panel, and a post. Now the balusters and the baluster panels are designed so that they will trim themselves when you place them on a stair. So look at the bottom of page 11. Now we're not going to open up the round baluster family as it's stated in the notes, but there are voids there which nibble off the top and bottom of these balusters to follow the angle of a stair. So that's the secret sauce for how these simple balusters are built. So they can be placed along a stair and follow the height of the stair. So when you use the baluster template, the simple baluster template, which I've got selected here, it doesn't have those voids in there. You have to put them in yourself, but it does have just about everything else. So it's got the angled reference planes here, which will automatically adjust their angle to that of the stair. And if it's just flat being put on around the edge of a floor, those two angling reference planes will automatically adjust to go flat in those applications. Now, if we go over to page 12, the one that's a little bit more complicated, so I'm just going to close down this panel template, and I'm going to go to the new dialog box again, choose new family, and this time I'm choosing the baluster panel. So instead of having just a little piece that's in the middle, here you can see there's reference planes on the side that allow you to define sort of a wider baluster that gets used. Now, in any event, whether you're just using a simple little picket or whether you're using a wider panel for, say, like a piece of glass, they're always placed center to center when we define them in our railing style. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to page 12, bottom of page 12, and we're going to go through the process of creating a baluster panel, a very simple one, that we're going to turn around and put into a railing design. And I'm going to walk you through this process so you folks can go along with me. Open up the baluster panel template so you've got the view like we see here ready to go. And we shall proceed. So page 12, making a diamond baluster panel. So this is going to kind of be like something you'd see down in Yaletown, where you have that kind of little black metal and it's sort of like an X-shaped thing here where you can put that into your railings design. Okay, so here we go. Step 2. Oh no, first of all we got to set our work plane. So step 1, create a new family using the baluster panel template. Ensure that you are in the left or right elevation, which we are. Using reference lines or model lines that are invisible lines, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the model line tool. So on the create tab, find the model line tool. And, oh, it's not putting us on a plane. Oh, I guess I should have chosen it. So center, left, right. And the reason Revit is asking me to do this is because I actually didn't do step 1. Create, set, center, left, right. I think that's what I was supposed to do. Yes. There we go. So I'm just setting my work plane. So now any modeling that I do is going to be placed in that work plane in the view. All right, so don't miss that step. So on the create tab, choose set right in this area here and use left, right as the plane that you're working in. All right, so we're using a model line, and we're going to use invisible lines. And the reason we're doing this is so that we'll be able to see this line that we're drawing here in the family, but once it's loaded into the project, these construction lines will not appear. Now, before you start drawing, uncheck the chain option up here on the drawing area, or on the options bar rather. And here we go. Drawing it from a corner up over to the other corner. And you'll see you'll get an intersection snap. Now the reason I unchecked chain is so that Revit would show us these lock icons, which I will lock. And what this will do is we'll keep this invisible line associated with these two different reference planes, so that as the angle of our rhomboid here changes, our parallelogram, these lines will stay tucked into the corners. Then we draw another line going from the other set of corners and lock them as well. So that's what you end up with. Now, we are going to create a sweep That's going to follow these invisible lines that we've drawn. So from the Create tab, choose Sweep. In the notes it says create a sweep and use the pick path button. That's this one here. And we choose one of the two lines that we've created here. I'll just choose this one. So we're looking at the end of step 2. Hit the check mark to finish the path. Right here. So we have the path defined. Now we need to load or draw the profile that will be swept along this black line. Now instead of drawing it, I've actually pre-drawn a rectangular profile that will be swept along this path. So if you folks look up on the ribbon, here, right here we have load profile. So do that and then go to our session 8 folder for tonight and find the, I think it's called box.rfa. So once this is done, once you've loaded the box family in, you will see it in the drop down at the top under the profile panel. So after you've loaded the profile, box from session 9 folder, you'll see it listed at the top, just like you see there. Everybody got that so far? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to hit finish. So this, you can see it's now sweeping that profile along the line. So I got one of my sweeps created. Now I need to do the other one. So I go back to the Create tab. I choose Sweep again. I choose Pick Path again. And I pick the other line. You just hit finish. And finish again. And then start the sweep command again. So we pick this other edge and finish. So there's our path along the other diagonal. And now I've already loaded the profile, so it'll be here for me. So I can just choose box and I'm good to go.
So when you load the profile, it doesn't show the green check mark?
Yeah, switch to here. Yeah, there it is. And now finish. There you go. And now, yeah, sweep again. Yeah, pick path. Yeah, you can pick path, please. Yeah, finish. Switch to the box. And finish. Yeah.
All right. Now, what we want to do is give this thing a material parameter. Actually, before we do that, let's do a joint geometry. If we look at it in 3D, you folks can see the two different, where these two different sweeps meet, they pass through each other. We've got those joint lines there. So to get rid of those, we're going to use join geometry here in the Modify tab, join geometry, and pick one of the sweeps and then the other sweep, and Revit joins them together, and you can see that the joints between those two sweeps are gone. So Revit merges those two geometries together to form a single solid.
Yeah, edges or?
Yep, pick the edges. Pick the edges of each and it'll merge them together. Okay. Now what we want to do is make this thing parametric in terms of its material. So I'm going to click on one of the solids, and it doesn't matter which one you choose. So once you got one of those sweeps selected, go over to the properties box and find its material parameter, and way over in the right hand side hit the little gray box so we can create a material parameter for this thing for when we render it. So it brings up this dialog box here to create a new parameter. At the bottom here, here's the button to create that new parameter, and the notes, step 6 on page 12 says call it baluster material. Baluster material. All right, hit OK. And hit OK. So now you notice that the material text kind of grays out, and there's a little equal sign over here on the right hand side to let you know that our solids are now associated with the material parameter. Now you'll notice that the other one also is using that material parameter, because when you use join geometry, both of these solids now use the same material. So if you wanted one of the balusters to be gray and the other one to be black, don't do a join geometry, and then you'd be able to make that choice. Okay, step 7, save the family as Baluster Diamond in your personal files drive. Okay, so Baluster Diamond. There we go. So we'll go over to page 13. Bottom of page 13, so the second half of the assignment. So what you can do now is you can close down, I'm going to close down the Baluster family, and I'm going to close down our example files here. So start a new project using the architectural template. So I've got that going here. Let's go back to my plan view. All right, there we go. Okay, open a new project. Page 13, halfway down, open a new project starting the architectural template. Open your Baluster Diamond family, so you should be able to find it in the file menu. So there it is there in your file menu. So you've got a blank architectural template ready to go. Go to the file menu, open up your Baluster Diamond. And it says here in the notes, step 2, open your Baluster Diamond family and load the family into the project. Now what we can actually do is we can actually not just choose load into project, but load into project and close. And what this will do is it'll load this Baluster family into our project and close this Baluster family down, so it's not open anymore. Now it doesn't look like anything's happened, but this Baluster Diamond family is in the project. We can prove it by going down to the Railings folder. And when we expand the Railings folder, you can see that Baluster Diamond is listed under your Railings folder in this project. So go down to the Baluster Diamond family, and it says step 2, find a baluster, double click its child entry. So that means there's the child entry right there. So there's the parent entry, there's the child entry, double click it, and change its width parameter down here at the bottom to be 4 feet. Everybody good so far? Wave at me if you need a hand. We can certainly help you out. Alrighty. Start a new railing family. So here, railing, sketch path, and choose the handrail rectangular railing style. Handrail rectangular, there it is. Duplicate it to create a new railing type called diamond baluster railing. So here we straight away go over to properties, edit its type, duplicate its type, and call it diamond baluster railing. Edit the top rail so that the type is none. So here you can see where it says top rail. Instead of it being a yes, we switch it to no. Actually, alternatively, you could have done this. You said yes. Instead of saying yes, you could say type circular. You could switch it and switch it to, oh no, they've changed that. They've made it a yes-no thing. Alrighty, so I have to switch top rail to say no. Okay, in the Rails dialog box for the new railing, so up here where it says Rails, we don't have any rails. So we need one that's called top at 42 inches and another one called bottom at 4 inches. So we hit insert and we'll call this one top. It is at 42 inches, and then we insert another one and it's called bottom, and its height is 4 inches. Oh, my bad. We are on the bottom of page 13. Now this is pretty straightforward. If you missed this, you'll be able to catch it on YouTube easily enough. Rectangular handrail 2x2. Rectangular handrail 2x2 for each one of those. I apologize for how small it probably appears on the screen up there, just because I'm using fairly high resolution on the stream to match that of my laptop monitor. So all right. So we're going to move on to page 14. Now, we are done with the Rails dialog, so go ahead and hit OK. We are going to move on to the Baluster dialog. So what you need to do is look very carefully at rows 2 and 3, and we're going to set this up. Now let's have a look. In row 3 on page 14, in the screenshot there, we've got a baluster square, 1 inch, and we've got baluster diamond. So that's our baluster that we've just created. So what we have to do to add a new row to get that diamond baluster in here is we have to duplicate one of the rows that's there already. So now what we're going to do, if you look in row 2, we're going to use our baluster diamond. I'm going to go down and find it here. There it is, baluster diamond. So look at baluster diamond, and now let's go to the next column for row 2. So we've got baluster diamond, and now the host or the base rather, so look at the column there for base for baluster diamond, and it says bottom. So there it is there. And the top of row 2, we actually choose top. Now, you can see distance from previous, it says 2 feet. Now, why are we choosing 2 feet? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Row 3, instead of a baluster square 3 inch, we want baluster square 1 inch, so the larger one. And for the base, we do want host, but for the top, we want top. So again, baluster diamond with a base of bottom, a top of top, 2 feet from previous. Row 3, baluster square 1 inch with a base of host and a top using the top value, and it is also 2 feet from previous. So what's going on here? Okay, so let me just draw why we're doing it this way. Okay, so see the pattern up there? Row 1, pattern start. So that's the start of the pattern. Then row 2, we have our baluster diamond. Distance from previous, 2 feet. That means we come over 2 feet, and now we put in our diamond baluster, which we remember we made it 4 feet wide. So that means now, I'll draw it as a simple X. That's 4 feet wide. So that's why we come over 2 feet. We come to the center line of our diamond baluster, and we are placing it in the pattern. Then in row 3, we do our baluster square 1 inch. So now we're putting in our vertical picket here. And that's it. And that's 2 feet from where we were before. So we start from the center line of our diamond baluster, and we come over 2 feet, and we put in our simple baluster. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create a rhythm, or a pattern, where it's diamond, picket, diamond, picket, diamond, picket, and so on. And that is going to give us the railing. Now, some of you are like, whoa, well, hold on a second here. What about what happens at the beginning? Well, that is handled by our posts at the bottom. So we're going to talk about that next. So remember, when you're laying out your balusters, top and bottom, it's always on a center-to-center basis. So now, just have to do the bottom. And as you can see, just use the settings at the bottom of the dialog box on page 14. So we're using our baluster square 1 inch. So these are the balusters at the beginning and end of the railing. They're all going to be the 1 inch square baluster. And there is a space setting here. Just copy those values, and I'll talk about what they mean in a second. Okay, what does the space setting do? Okay, when you're drawing a railing from beginning to end, you got your pink sketch line. So there's the start, there's the end. This space value that you see here is in respect to the direction that you're going. So that direction is positive, and going backwards is negative. So let's say that you've got your 1 inch square baluster. What you want to do is ensure that your 1 inch baluster starts at the starting line, and your 1 inch baluster at the end ends at the ending line. So we don't want it so that it's like this. And the reason that we don't want to do that is because when that baluster comes up, our rails start right at the starting line. So we don't want this situation where our baluster going up is kind of hanging out in space with you being able to look down and see the top of the pipe. I mean, that's ugly. So what we want to do instead is use the space value to bring it forward by half of the thickness of your baluster that's being used at the beginning. So if it's 1 inch thick, we slide that thing forward half an inch so that our rails start at the same time as our balusters do. So that's what the half and minus half does. So at the end of the railing, same thing. We don't want our baluster going too far. So again, that you can see down on top of the pipe. You want that to miter up really nicely. So you have a negative of half of the width of the baluster. So your rails just cap over it perfectly once you get to the end of the railing. So that is the purpose of the space values at the beginning and the end.
So means this number is always half of the...
Yes, usually. Yeah, that's usually the railing design. So if it was a 6-inch post, your space would be 3 and minus 3 inches. Okay, so looking at the justify options here for our pattern, instead of justify beginning, we're going to justify center, just like you see in the notes. And I think that's it. Okay, we're going to hit OK. And hit OK, and we're going to draw a line across the screen here now. And finish it. And see how we're doing. Uh-oh, something's not working here. You can see at the beginning of my railing, I have no post. I have done something wrong. Oh, I'll bet you I know what I did. Okay, have a look at the bottom down here, folks. See? For my balusters, I do have the base right, but I don't have the top defined. There we go. There, now I got my posts at the beginning and the end.
Change the base to top.
I changed the top to top. Yeah, base is host, but top should be top. Now, anybody have a complaint they'd like to level against Revit? Based on what you see on the screen. Dear Revit, you suck. What we have here is we've got this gap at the end. So what's happening, of course, is that when we did our justification for our baluster pattern, we centered it. So it means Revit takes the module, which is every 4 feet, and puts in one of these baluster panels exactly every 4 feet. But of course, the railing that you draw across the screen is not going to be exactly 4 feet long in most cases. It'll often be some other crazy number. Now, in a case like this, where you do have a module drawn, the way that you could prevent these gaps from happening at the beginning and the end is to ensure that your railing sketch line is exactly equals 19 modules of 4 feet. And now it's exactly on module and it's okay. Right? Did you guys see that? Just so you can see when you've got a dimension in Revit. When you've got a dimension in Revit, if you see the number there and you click on it, you can put an equal sign. And here I want it to be, increments of 4 feet. So I can say 15 times 4 feet. So I get 60 feet. Or 4 feet less than that. Just put that equal sign at the front. So now I am assured that I will just get the exact module without any extra filler space at the ends. So this is a limitation of Revit because Revit does not yet, I'm hoping it'll fix it someday, does not allow you to maybe give a range within which you can have your panels squish. Like you can say, hey Revit, I don't mind if this panel gets to be as narrow as 3 feet and as wide as 4'6". Just allow those panels to kind of squish in between those two values. Revit doesn't do that right now. So it does create a little bit of grief in that regard.
So, quick question. If we use the colored shape, same as rectangle that I use here, I still have the error that we had before. What should I do about that?
Well, if what you're looking for is just making sure that in your baluster dialog box, that you've got a bottom and top that allows for some height for both your balusters that are in the main pattern and the posts at the bottom. Now, just so you folks know what the difference between the top and the bottom is, this is something we went over in the intro course, but we will go over it again here. These balusters are the pattern that repeats all the way along the length of the railing. And then at the start and the end of the railing, you have these posts, which are the terminus, the beginning and the terminus of the railing. Corner posts are what happens when your railing gets to an end and turns a corner and goes in another direction. So Revit puts the corner post in those locations. So these, you can use the same balusters in both locations, but these ones are, again, the start and end and corner point of a railing as it changes direction. So what you want to make sure is that the base and top, for both of these, base and top, that you're actually providing enough height so that these families can exist. So if I made this, you know, if the distance between the bottom and top here was only 2 inches, there wouldn't be enough room for Revit to build this geometry, and Revit will just omit it from the railing. So that's why you could run into a situation where stuff is missing and Revit's giving you an error message and your railing looks weird. And that would be just because you haven't properly defined a bottom and a top for these different elements in the railing so they can actually be modeled by the software. Now, one more thing before I wrap up the lecture here and set you folks off on the exercise on page 17. I just want to talk about something that's not in the notes, and that is about how to make a wall-mounted railing. This is often, again, something I teach to the intro class, but again, I'll bring it up again here for those of you who didn't take my intro class or you've forgotten. One of the most important things when you're putting handrails into your project is to have all the code required elements. That is the size of the graspable handrail, clearance behind it, and the extension at the top and bottom of the stairs. So your handrail comes up and then carries on another foot at the top of the stairs and also at the bottom. So what we're going to do is just talk about making a railing style that provides those features. Now I'll keep this this file alive here, and I'm just going to draw a stair, very simple stair, across the screen and finish. So if you folks want to do that, you're going to want to know how to make this this railing style that will be a wall-mounted handrail for when you do not have a need for a guard. So I've just drawn that stair across, and it doesn't matter what kind of a stair style you've used, it's not critical. So just in 3D here, there's my, oh look at that, it's using my diamond baluster. That's pretty awesome. But what we want to do now is we want to make a railing that goes along our stair that will just be a wall-mounted thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the railing that's along one side of the stair here, and we're going to make a new railing style that doesn't have any guards. It's just a handrail. So when you're putting your stair up against a wall, you want a handrail for people to use. So we're going to make a new railing style. So just select that railing, edit it, and duplicate it. And we'll call this wall handrail only. So new railing style. So what's going to happen now is that we're not going to have any balusters. We're not going to have any non-continuous rails either. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the Baluster Placement dialog box and we're going to set them all to none. So down at the bottom here, switching them to none. Up here, none. Setting them all to none. In fact, I don't even need this row. I'm going to just delete it. So all of your balusters, none, 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 none. No balusters. All right, that's it. So now we have no balusters. Now we want to get rid of the non-continuous rails as well. So we go into the non-continuous rails. And if there's none, don't worry about it. If not, we delete them so that none of them exist. And I'm ignoring the errors. So we have no non-continuous rails. And we have no balusters. So you're like, wow, what's going to be in here? Well, there's going to be one component. Go down to your handrail. So once you go back out to the railings type properties, drop on down to type where it says handrail here and switch it to, so when you hit the little type dialog box here, you hit the little ellipsis button on the right hand side and it brings up this dialog box here. Now there's one that's called pipe wall mount in terms of the different handrail styles. So this is an out-of-the-box handrail style that's called pipe wall mount. So go ahead and hit OK. So we've added the handrail type to this railing style, but you can see the position is set to none, which means you still wouldn't see it. So if you choose left as the position, it will put it in the right place so that your handrails will appear to be attached to the wall. So it's really important. Type is wall mount, position is left. Okay, so now you can just hit OK. And there is our wall mounted handrail right at the edge of the stair. So now you can set the other railing to be wall handrail only. And so now you have a stair style that has, or not a stair style, a railing style, which has no balusters going up. And the only thing that's defined in it, the only geometry that's defined in this railing style is a handrail. Now, why does Revit have handrail 1 and handrail 2? This is so that if you have a stair where people are going up on both sides of the rail, so you've got steps on either side of the railing, you could give a different handrail on one side as compared to the other. So this would allow you, so just kind of looking at it in section, here's your pickets that are going up to say a top rail of some kind, and on one side you can provide a round handrail, and on the other side you can provide sort of more of a bumper type handrail that you might see if someone with a physical disability is using those stairs and you don't want them to be bruised, or maybe there's a ramp on the other side and one's for people in wheelchairs and the other one's for ambulatory people going up the steps. So that's why a railing style allows you to have a different handrail on one side than the other. Just make sure that when you add your handrail to your railing style that you choose left as the height. Now you'll notice here that the lateral offset and height values are grayed out. You can't adjust them here. You have to go into your pipe wall mount and edit it there. So here, I'll go dig down in the project browser here. Go down to railings, go down to handrail type. Here we go. Pipe wall mount. Just double click on it. So here, you can set your clearance behind. You can set the height of it above the nosing line of the stair. All of that stuff is here. Now, at the bottom and top of the stair, if you want your horizontal extensions, as requested by the building code, you put them in here. Extensions. So they are wall extensions, 1 foot. So it extends at 1 foot along the wall, hit apply, and there you go, it comes down the stair, and it does the little returns back into the wall. I don't know if you could turn the returns off, can I? Oh yeah, I think that's what it is. There's no extension. It just extends but doesn't return. That's right. So if you say none, it just goes and ends, but if you choose wall, it does turn the corner and return back into the wall. So you can decide whether you want it to return or not. But there's your code required extensions at the top and bottom of your railing. Okay, so the rest of the class I will give over. There's an assignment you folks need to do on page 17, last page of the notes, to add this in. There's a file that you need from the session 9 folder so that you can accomplish this. We're actually using a sunshade that you put on the outside of a building, and we're using a railing to provide that architectural need for your building. So that's it. So I'm going to end the stream now, and then you guys can work on your term project. You can ask questions, and we'll call it a night.